Hey everyone, this is using the unit circle part 4. This is the last video that we're going to look at before you will be able to do your assignment. So this is the last piece you need before that worksheet that's assigned. So I'm going to go through 6 pretty quick examples. This is going to put together everything in the preceding videos. So hopefully you know most of this already. So the worksheet is going to consist of questions like this. And first thing you have to do is be able to find negative 210. So the two ways we talked about, positive 210 is here. It's moving through 2 quadrants and then going to that first branch. But negative means you're going in the opposite direction clockwise, and you have to move that same distance. So going through 2 quadrants and then to the first branch in the negative direction would look like that. Right? Here's the first quadrant, the second quadrant, and then going to that first branch. So if you prefer that method, then you would locate negative 210 in that position where I just highlighted. If you don't like that, the other thing you can do is add 360 to find a positive coterminal angle, and that gives you 150. And if you're using that method, when you get 150, then all you're doing is you're just looking for where is 150 on the unit circle? It's right here. So either way, hopefully you can find yourself at that branch. And then the last thing you need is the sign. Which one is that? So remember, the cosine comes before sine in the alphabet and x comes before y. So sine is the y value. So once you find the angle, then you're just, for the sine, you're just going to grab that y value and it's equal to 1/2. So that's the first one. The second one we will do is tangent 5 pi over 3. So look for 5 pi over 3. This is actually on the unit circle. 5 pi over 3, we don't have to do any arithmetic to find it. So 5 pi over 3 is here. And so you already know what branch you're on in the unit circle. And then you're figuring out the tangent. And do you remember the formula for tangent? If you need a hint, here's your triangle, here's your angle, this is x, this is y, this is 1. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so you have opposite, which is y, over adjacent, which is x. So if you can remember that tangent is y over x, then what you're doing, this one's a little bit trickier, is the y value, negative root 3 over 2, divided by the x value, which is 1/2. Right? Y over x, the y value over the x value. And then we'll do a little bit of arithmetic. So remember that that fraction bar represents division. And so dividing by 1/2, then you would also say dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. And I would just cancel those 2's. You have a 2 on top and a 2 on the bottom, leaving you with root 3 over 1, which is just root 3. So this answer is root 3. So a little bit more arithmetic on that one. Okay, third question is secant of negative 3 pi over 4. So again, we have that negative angle. And so 3 pi over 4 is here. So it's going through a quadrant and then going to that middle branch. Because it's negative, you're going to do the opposite direction, through the first quadrant to the middle branch. And if you're using that method, this is where you are, that's where negative 3 pi over 4 is. So through the first quadrant to that middle branch. The other way, if you wanted to have a positive angle, is that, remember, you can add. And since we're in radians, what would it be that we're adding? Because it's not 360. It's going to be 2 pi. And then you would need a common denominator. So what would the common denominator be in this example? It would be 4. So you're multiplying by 4 over 4. So you have negative 3 pi over 4 and 8 pi over 4, which is 5 pi over 4. And if you have a positive angle, 5 pi over 4, then, and that's the method that you're using, then you're just looking for where is 5 pi over 4 on the unit circle. It's right here. So either one of those methods to find your angle, And then the secant is the reciprocal of what? We have sine, cosine, tangent. Which one did secant go with? It was the reciprocal of cosine, right? Remember that S and C trick? And then sine goes with cosecant. But this is what we need right here. So we're being asked for secant. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, and cosine is which value, the x or the y? Cosine is the x value, right? Cosine and sine, x and y. So here's all the things we just said. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Cosine is the x value. So what you're going to do is take that x value and just flip it over. And that would be your answer. Okay, the next one is sine of negative 270. Okay, so here's your two ways. Positive 270 is 90, 180, 270. It's on the axis there. But if you're doing that in the negative direction, you're going 90, 180, 270. So you would be here. Okay, so that's where negative 270 is. If you don't like that, you can add 360, and that would give you 90 degrees. Where is 90 degrees? It's right here. So either one of those ways to find where you are. And then sine, is that the x or the y value? That is the y value. So you would just take the y value there, which is 1. I'll stop repeating that cosine sine every time. I think I've said that a bunch of times, so hopefully that's sticking in your brain. 2 more, almost done. Number 5. 5 is tangent of 3 pi. Okay, so one way to find this is if you just kind of use your knowledge of this is pi, this is 2 pi. So let me say that again. This is 1 pi, this is 2 pi, 3 pi would be here. If you don't like that, this is an easy one to just subtract 2 pi, right? That's the same as moving in a complete circle. So pi is coterminal. Where is pi on the unit circle? It's right here. So either one of those ways to find your branch. And then what is the formula for tangent? We did this one already. Tangent is y over x. Remember, we showed the triangle last time, so I won't do that again. Tangent is y over x. So all you have to do is take the y value, which is 0, over the x value, which is negative 1. 0 divided by negative 1 is 0. Okay, and the very last question, oops, thought I had a unit circle there. The very last question that we'll look at is secant of 11 pi over 2. By the way, the worksheet will have a range of questions. They'll have a lot more questions that are easier, like you're going to get it in 10 seconds because you just find the place on the unit circle and grab the coordinate. I'm trying to show a little bit more complicated ones that I think you'll struggle with a little bit more, so that's why I'm trying to provide more support on those more complicated ones. So 11 pi over 2, 11 over 2 is more than 5, right? 2 goes into 11 more than 5 times. So you are well around the unit circle. If you notice a little pattern here, this is 1 pi over 2, and this is 3 pi over 2. So my people who like to just kind of reason out where this is, 1 pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2, going from 1 to 3, think about that pattern and what the next one would be. So 1 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, this would be 5 pi over 2, 7 pi over 2, 9 pi over 2, 11 pi over 2. So we're here. If you do not like that, then you can subtract 2 pi. And what would your common denominator there be? It would be 2. So it's 11 pi over 2 minus 4 pi over 2, which is 7 pi over 2. 7 pi over 2 is a little bit more than 3 pi, right? 2 goes into 7 more than 3 times. So we're still beyond a full revolution. So we're going to subtract again. And I'm going to use 4 pi over 2 because I already know that that's the common denominator I'm going to need. And that leaves me with 3 pi over 2. So 3 pi over 2, where is that on the unit circle? It's right here. So either way you're doing this, you should find yourself here. And then let's finish this question. So think about what secant is the reciprocal of. Secant is the reciprocal of which function? Cosine. Starting to really like this S and C trick. It's really quick to think about. So secant is the reciprocal of cosine. And cosine, which value is that, the x or the y? Cosine is the x value. And so the x value here, this is an interesting one. I'm glad that it's in here for you to see. The x value is 0. Okay, so cosine is the x value, which is 0. Secant is going to be that reciprocal. But what happens here, 0 is the same thing as 0 over 1. And when you take the reciprocal, you get a 0 in the denominator. So we're going to actually label this one as undefined. You could just write UND, undefined, because it puts the 0 in the bottom, which we can't have. All right, so hopefully that is going to help you a lot with the worksheet that is assigned, but you can always let me know if you have questions through email or office hours on Friday at 3 o'clock.